For these problems, you want to write a function as a composition. What that means is we want to compose this little f, g, and h so that we get this capital F, G, and H. So how do you think we would write a composition so that our answer would be f of x? Just based on what these first two look like, it looks like we're going to use those, right? Or f of g. F of g means to put g inside f. So let's find f of g of x. Put g inside f. Well, this is f, and g is x minus 3. That is exactly what we want, right? So our composition, f of g, would be how we get this function. So it's kind of like working backwards. We want to see what did they compose to get these functions. So how about g of x? What could you compose to get x minus 6? So let's just start trying some. What about g of h? So that means you take g and write it down without your x, and you put h inside it. Well, that's just 2x minus 3. That one doesn't work, right? What if we have h of g? You take h, write it down, so we'd have 2 times something, and g is going to be x minus 3. That's 2x minus 6. Well, that's closer to what we want, but it's still not right. So what in the world could we compose to get x minus 6? Can you think of anything? How about g of x? This means you take g and write it down without the x. But instead of the x, you write g, which is x minus 3. Well, x minus 3 minus 3 is x minus 6, right? That's what we want. So our function composed is g of x. You can even write it like this. Gog. g of g. Okay, so we have these two more functions. At the top of the page, we still had an h to come up with. How could we compose these functions to get 2 square root of x minus 3? It almost looks like we're going to have to use all of them, right? It looks like we put the square root where this x is, and we put that where this x is. So what does that mean? We put f into h and h into g. So g is on the outside, f into h, h into g. So h and then f of x. Let's see if it works. Who knows? So we find g of h of something. What is f of x? It's the square root of x, right? So we have g of h of x means we write down h, but we put the square root of x where the x is. And then g of 2 square root of x means we replace this x with 2 square root of x. So we get 2 square root of x minus 3. That's all we want. So our composition is g of h of f. Of course, it might take you a couple of tries to guess the right one, but as long as you're trying, that's what counts. At least for now. Alright, so how do we come up with 2 square root of x minus 3? It almost looks like we put this inside the square root, and then all of that inside this one, right? So g inside f inside h. G inside f inside h. So let's see if that's right. H of f of, what is g of x? G of x is x minus 3. So f of x minus 3 means you put the square root without the x and you put what's in f, so x minus 3. Then we want to find h of the square root of x minus 3. Well, h is 2x, so 2 times something. And that something is the square root of x minus 3. So we get 2 square root x minus 3. That's exactly what we want as well. So our composition is h of f of g. How about a couple of applications and then we'll call it done. A student's salary in dollars for collecting X phone books is given by S of X equals 0.30x plus 240. The amount of withholding for taxes is given by W of X equals 0.20x, where X is the salary. Express the withholding as a function of the number of phone books collected. Express the withholding as a function of the number of phone books collected. So the number of phone books is going to be our variable. So how would we go about doing this? The salary is 0.3x plus 240, and that's for X phone books. And then the wages would be 0.2x, where x is the salary. So normally, wouldn't you take your salary and multiply it by your percentage to find out the withholding you have to pay? So that means you would take all of this. That represents the number of phone books, right? That also represents the salary, and you would put it right there because it said x is the salary. Once you put it there, what is the x in the new function going to be? The number of phone books. So that's what this means. Write it as a function of the number of phone books. So you would say W of S or S of W. You're putting S inside W. So W of S is equal to, I cannot get these lines to stick around. There we go. Is equal to 0.2x, but instead of x, I put all that stuff. 0.3x plus 240. Now we need to do a few little calculations to clean it up a little bit. We have 0.2 times 0.3. That's 0.06 plus 0.2 times 240 is 48. So you have just written withholding as a function of the number of phone books. A revenue for a sale of X books at $80 each is given by R of X is equal to 80X. The commission for a revenue of X dollars is given by C of X equals 0.1X. Express the commission as a function of the number of books sold. When it says as a function of, all that stuff after the of, the number of books sold, that's what your variable should be in your composition or in your function. So the number of books sold, X books, is talking about this one, right? So we must need to put that inside this function so that we keep this one. We want X to be the number of books sold. So what would that be? R of C or C of R? you're putting r inside c, so that would be c of r, and that is equal to 0.1x, but x is 80x. So you would say 0.1 times 80, and you would end up with 8x.